Alright, so now we have the long-awaited overview of the multi-cyclone separator. It's been in use for about 2 years now. I'm still using it today, despite upgrading to another cyclonic unit, but we'll get to that. Let's get into it. Alright, so a quick demonstration of emptying the bin. First I'll loosen the screws and remove the hose. Then I'll roll the bin out to the cyclone out to the big bin. Open up the bin, undo the 4 clips on the outside of the cyclone, and lift the top half off. Now this bin's obviously already empty, but basically you just pick up the bin quite easily and tip it out. Put the bin back down on the ground and put the top half back on, clip it. If I didn't put it back on the same direction I had it first, I just need to readjust these clips. It only takes a couple of seconds. I suppose that comes down to not having them all identical when I built it. And then roll it back into me shed. And reattach the hoses. Screw them on nice and tight so they can't slip off. And she's ready to go again. Alright, now I'm going to go into a bit more detail as to things I would change if I was to do the project again, and I do plan to someday make a better cyclonic unit that'll do a bit more CFM. So anyway, about a year or so ago I bought this little ammeter, I think it's called, to test the CFM through the unit, and it was after that that I realised that I was actually cutting down a lot of the CFM, because I made it for well, actually I made it for 90mm pipe, but I've attached 100mm pipe to it, but my dust extractor is actually built for 125mm pipe, or 5-inch pipe. Didn't realise that, didn't sort of sit down and do all the measurements and figure everything out before I made the unit, so that was a mistake. So in redesigning it, I'll design it probably more for 6-inch pipe to make sure I get a bit more CFM. As it is, I get around 300 CFM out of it, which isn't great, but it is enough for the purpose I'm still using it for, which is on our CNC machine. I'll point out that this seal around the inner bin has failed. It failed about, I don't know, 6 months or so into the use. I suppose it comes from taking the bin on and off and it catching on the seal. Just means it doesn't keep a lot of the fine dust in the bin. It tends to suck a bit up through the cyclones, but when the seal was working there seemed to be more or less nothing going through, so the cyclones themselves are working quite well. As you can see in here, a bit of fine dust build up, that just is the dust coming out through the cyclones. Pretty typical in any dust extraction, I think. In a future model I might, instead of drilling a whole heap of holes in the plastic shielding that stops the large particles getting into the inner cyclones. I might change that to something a bit more like a fly wire. This will stop the particles a bit better and hopefully allow a bit more airflow to go through as well. Not that these have ever caused any troubles. Even when the cyclone has been overfilled, there has never been anything to get into the inner cyclones that have caused a blockage. Alright, so I've already pulled the screws out to show you this next bit a little bit easier. If I take the lid off, you can see a bit of the fine dust is making it through again. Once again, it's because of that seal. I'll take it inside. Alright, now I am getting a little bit of dust build up in the on the top of the ramps. That's not really an issue, it's never going to block anything up there. I never have had any blockages down in these cyclones. One thing I have noticed is in this inside bit here, inside the shroud that stops larger particles getting in before the cyclones, there is a bit of dust build up in there. I don't believe it will ever clog it, but it's just something I've noticed. There is a couple of ideas I've had of how to combat that. One is to put some walls up in between the cyclones to direct the air to flow into the center, to stop it swirling around the inside there. That might help it. It might cause a few stale spots where the dust will still settle. Another option is to instead of having it come into the center, come up and then go out to the cyclones. I figured if I have it come up at the outside and then go to the outside of the cyclones, it really gives it nowhere to sort of stop, and that might be where I might improve this in the future when I make another one. Another one would be to have more cyclones, obviously, to allow more airflow. Okay, moving on from my cyclonic separator to the cyclonic separator we got to give us a bit more airflow at our sanders and whatnot. Now, as you can see over here, we've got the Clearview CV Max. This has helped out a lot in terms of airflow, and I just didn't have the time about a year ago when we bought it to make a couple of cyclones, or make a new cyclone to improve the airflow to cater to what we needed in the shed. Now this has been pretty good. Alright, so here we have a variable speed drive for the cyclone. This allows us to run the cyclone off single phase electricity, which was good in our older shed because we didn't have 3-phase. And also gives us the ability to adjust the speed of the cyclone if we don't need it running at full speed. In terms of dust separation, the Clearview is good, but the fine dust we're putting through it now, we're probably going over what it was designed for, using it on the sanders, as a lot of the dust that is coming off the sanders is very fine. It does capture a lot of it down in the bin, but I do notice I've cleaned the filters out probably 2, maybe 3 times in the last year, and you get quite a lot caked up into the filters. And here's my little speed control for the variable speed drive. This is so I can adjust the speed from the sander where I'm most likely to use it, and turn it on and off as I need to. Okay, so all in all, I think the project went quite well. I've learned a lot along the way, learned where a few improvements could be made with the unit. To finish up, I'll show you a couple of photos here. On the left we have a bin, as you can see, full in the center, and a lot lower on the outside. That's because it was running on the sanders, so there was a lot more fine dust. And on the right, we've got a bin that was filled up on the CNC machine. So as you can see, the inner bin didn't fill up much at all. The next photos here, we have a bin on the left which was overfilled. So you can see that I've tested it to the extremes. And on the right we have a bin that was filled, or well, not filled, but it was when I cleaned out the filters on my clear view. As you can see, it's just a lot of fine dust and it has caked up the sides. Following on to this next photo is a closer look at the inner bin after I cleared the filters in the clear view. You can see at the top here where the inner bin has leaked during that, so a bit of the finer dust made it through the cyclones as well. Alright, well, I hope you've enjoyed these videos. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. Cheers.